Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast. Bob and Phil here. We have an potential Apple acquisition that's really going to blow your guys' mind, and that's what we're going to dive into this video. So let's get to it.
Trade Genius.
Hey guys, before we get started in this video, I wanted to remind you that we do have our specials running. They are going to expire Saturday night. There's a variety of bundles here for every level of trader and investor. So head over to tradegenius.co and check them out. And best savings of the year right now. So Bob, you presented a pretty interesting scenario, which I think at first I was like, what? But now I think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And well, it was your idea. Why don't you tell them what you're thinking?
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Phil? As you know, I've been very bearish on Tesla, and for good reason. I mean, look, we've been right. It's down 70% year over year, and my position on Tesla is that they are going to run into increasing competition from basically the people catching up, and that they probably don't have the stamina, if you will, to be able to cross the finish line long term. And so, you know, I'm doing quick cash flow analysis on this, and hey, Tesla's probably a $23 stock. And then they had this big dump last week. And then I recalled an article that I read a couple months back, and because I'm also bearish on Apple. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, what's Apple's encore to all this stuff? And they want to get in the car business, but you know, I think if you watch what Tesla went through to try to, writing software and building cars are two different skill sets, I think. And I think, Apple has really super high margins because they're primarily software, and I know they have the hardware around it, but they make all their money on software. And then a weird thing happened about a month ago when Elon bought Twitter. He was getting in this big fight with Apple. Remember that? It was like Apple's going to put Twitter out of business, and then Elon Musk just had this, basically called Tim Cook up and said, we're going to meet. And they came out of that meeting, and next thing you know it, Apple is back on board with Twitter, like number one advertiser again. Tim Cook and Elon had a big hug. And I just started going through my head. I was like, it's more than just advertising here. And then I saw the article that you're going to put up now. And I think what's interesting is I think everything that people love about Apple, they would love to extrapolate into an Apple car. And I think, Apple and Mac acolytes they have a religious experience around Apple products. And even though I hate all things the way Apple runs their wokeness, I'm totally committed to their product set. I mean, I was just joking with my family. I think we own one of everything that they make because they're incredible investments for our business. I got the mini speaker. I got the headphones. Right here. I got we got two Macs in the house. I got 3 iPads, we got 4 phones, and I like their tools. But at the same time, he's getting stale. And I don't think there's any way that Apple can pour in the money that they need to try to catch up with Tesla in their self-driving capability. Elon Musk is really good at I think, he's clever. He's clever in the way Steve Jobs is clever, in terms of just giving people kind of what they want. But he doesn't have the money anymore, and I think quite frankly, he's losing interest in Tesla. I kind of feel it. Twitter's a new toy with him. Starlink's a new toy. SpaceX a new toy. Tesla's like, I already built self-driving. I already throw a phone in there, and manufacturing is hard, and Apple knows how to do manufacturing.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, wow. And also, Apple generates over $100 billion in cash flow every year. So if Tesla gets cheap enough in the next 3 to 4 months, which I think it will, based on our numbers, Apple doesn't have to worry about how good their stock is to buy Tesla. They can put a big chunk of cash down and buy Tesla. And next thing you know, then you have this everything that Apple people wanted in a car, Apple could put into that Tesla. Everything that Tesla people wanted that Apple has, they could put into that car. And I think you'd have an amazing product. And so I think it's definitely possible out there. That's one of the reasons why I kind of put on the brakes on the, when we get a push here, because we just had a great run, buying Tesla calls here this week on a reverse. But I still think Tesla's coming down, probably in the probably the high 50s to 60, and then I would think Tesla is going to get bought out, and there's only a few companies in the world that can buy them out, and I think one of them is Apple, and I think we should keep an eye on it. I'll throw it back to you. Agree, disagree? What do you think on that? Because I kind of sprung this on you. I'd like to get your opinion.
I like the idea, and I think when you were talking about that, and I thought about that tweet that Elon had done, where he said, "Gee, thanks for touring me around the Apple campus, there, Mr. Tim Cook." That for some reason that tweet came back into my mind, and I was thinking, And then you have this article here where it went on to say that 50% of the Tesla car owners would hop over to an Apple car. So Apple's got, as far as the allegiance goes, their allegiance is greater than Tesla. And they're just, like you said, they're in everything, right? And when Apple first started coming out with things like the iPod and things like that, I didn't, there's the more techie crowd, which I'm in, they didn't like having to be forced into an ecosystem. So they went with like Android phones and products. But that's not the majority of the people, right? Majority of people want a user-friendly device. And if you set up an entire ecosystem that just works, that's what they're going to gravitate to. And I think that's the big lesson for everybody from what Apple's done in the last 10 to 20 years. And so I think if you have, like you said, Bob, most of your stuff in your house is getting to be Apple, right? And if you're going to now incorporate your transportation into that ecosystem, I think you are unleashing a giant here, and it does make a lot of sense if they go ahead and take all of the buyout Tesla, have all that R&D and production line ready to go, and then they refine it with how they know how to market and design products and integrate it into everything else. Because you have the satellites in space with Elon, with Musk's Starlink. You have he's kind of talked about a phone, right? There's a lot of things here that at the end of the day, if this happened, you'd be like, oh, all the signs were there, right? And so I'm in agreement with you. I think that would be a massive merger, and I think it would be just a total boom to both Apple and Tesla.
So I think, one thing too, Phil, is I think you could put Starlink, Apple, and Tesla together. Can you imagine Surrey and Starlink, right? Surrey built into the Tesla car.
Yeah.
Starlink built into the Tesla car. And what made me really start thinking this is Elon Musk made that comment that we're going to have the most valuable car company in 10 years. And I'm just sitting there going, well, what are you talking about? Tesla's going to go out of business here in the next 3 or 4 years because GM is coming up.
Yeah, because that came after his meeting, right?
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, even though he's struck with hyperbole, I always listen very carefully to what he says, because there's always kind of a bit of a prophecy in that boast. There's a little grain of truth in the post. And I'm thinking, okay, how does Tesla beat GM? Well, they hook up with Apple, right? Because Apple has things Tesla needs. Tesla has things Apple needs. And so, I'm thinking, if not an acquisition, a major investment. Remember when Apple or Microsoft invested in each other, kind of a thing? And I see a hookup somehow. Either they're going to date, or they're going to live together, or they're going to get married. And I think that's going to happen in 2023. And it's going to happen probably when Tesla looks like it's on the ropes. And that's going to be like the investment of the year. And so just keep an eye on that. I just see this as just, it just makes too much sense in Synergy. And, in my background, that's what I did, when I was at Ceridian. I looked for synergies that, okay, what don't we have? How can we quickly fill that gap? So anyway, Phil, that's what I'm thinking. I'll give you the final word on Apple and Tesla, but I think it's a thing, and I think people need to pay attention. And you have to keep this in mind when you're shorting this thing, that an announcement like this could just come out of the blue.
Yeah, Bob, you'll float me ideas and thoughts, and sometimes I poke a hole in them, and sometimes I don't. And I think this one is intriguing. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think the other thing I like about it is no one's really talking about it. Like, you know what I mean? And usually those are the ones that come to fruition. It's the things that everyone talks about doesn't usually happen. And I don't really. So I think I think you're reading between the lines here, and don't be surprised if this is actually something that happens in the next 12 to 24 months. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Trade Genius podcast. Please hit like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out our specials at tradegenius.co. We'd love to see you on board. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Trade Genius.